Hollywood night shimmered with an electric pulse, the kind that only a movie premiere could ignite. The Dolby Theater, bathed in golden light, hummed with anticipation. Paparazzi cameras flashed like a swarm of fireflies, their lenses trained on the red carpet, where stars, moguls, and dreamers collided. The air smelled of ambition perfume and the faint tang of champagne. At the center of it all stood Mason Carter, a white American billionaire whose name was synonymous with cinematic triumph. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes cut through the crowd, a beacon of charisma in a tailored black tuxedo. His skin, lightly tanned from years under the California sun, glowed under the spotlights, but his expression carried a shadow betrayal from a business partner still stung a wound fresh from the boardroom. Mason navigated the carpet with practiced ease, shaking hands, flashing smiles, and dodging questions about the recent fallout with his former partner Victor Kane. The tabloids had been ruthless, painting Mason as a ruthless mogul who'd crushed Kane to secure his empire. The truth was, Messier Kane had siphoned funds, sabotaged deals, and left Mason to clean up the wreckage. Tonight, though, was about redemption. His new film, Eclipsed Horizons, was poised to dominate the box office, and Mason was determined to let nothing, not even Kane's shadow, dim its shine. Tiana Foster stood quietly across the theater's grand lobby, subtly contrasting the chaos. An African-American woman with deep, radiant skin and eyes that held stories untold, Tiana was a rising star in costume design. Her emerald green gown, a creation of her own, hugged her frame with a grace that turned heads. The fabric shimmered with hand-stitched beadwork, each detail a testament to her passion and precision. She wasn't here to bask in the spotlight, but to ensure the film's costumes. Her costumes looked flawless on the actors parading the carpet, yet her heart raced as she adjusted a starlet's velvet cape. This was her first major premiere, a chance to prove she belonged in Hollywood's ruthless orbit. Their paths crossed near the champagne bar, where the crowd parted just enough for their eyes to meet. Mason, holding a glass of bourbon, froze. Tiana's sharp and unguarded gaze hit him like a script he hadn't read yet, one he desperately wanted to. She noticed him too, her breath catching at the intensity in his stare. For a moment, the clamor of the premiere faded, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of unspoken possibility. "Nice work on the costumes," Mason said, his voice low and smooth, breaking the silence as he approached. "They're stealing the show." Tiana smiled, a mix of pride and caution. "Thank you. I poured my soul into them. I'm Tiana Foster, by the way." Mason Carter. He extended a hand, his fingers brushing hers with a lingering warmth. "I'm a fan of soul. It's rare in this town." She laughed softly, her eyes scanning his face. Up close, his pale skin was flecked with faint freckles, a detail that softened his otherwise commanding presence. "Hollywood does love to polish the soul out of things," she said, "but I'm stubborn. I keep mine intact." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, a dance of wit and curiosity. Mason was drawn to her fire, the way she spoke about her craft with unapologetic passion. Tiana sensed a depth in him, a man who'd built an empire, but carried a quiet hunger for something real. They talked about art, ambition, and the fleeting magic of a perfect film frame. For an hour, the premiere's chaos melted away, and it was just them, two dreamers in a city that devoured dreams. But the night wasn't kind. As Mason and Tiana lingered near a velvet rope, a woman in a crimson gown slithered into view. Olivia Reed, Mason's rival, and a producer with a venomous smile, had been watching from the shadows. Her pale skin glowed under the chandeliers, but her eyes were cold, calculating. Olivia had a knack for turning opportunities into weapons, and she'd been gunning for Mason since he'd outbid her on a major studio deal. She knew about his fallout with Kane and saw Tiana as a new pawn in her game. Enjoying the spotlight, Mason Olivia purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "And who's this? Your latest project?" Tiana's jaw tightened, but she held her ground. "Tiana Foster. I designed the costumes for Eclipsed Horizons." "And you are?" Olivia's smile didn't waver. "Olivia Reed. I make things happen in this town. You do well to remember that." Mason stepped closer to Tiana, his presence protective. "Olivia, if you're here to stir trouble, save it. Tonight's about the film." "Oh, I wouldn't dream of stealing your thunder," Olivia said, her eyes flicking to Tiana. "But be careful, darling. Mason's world chews up bright young things like you." The exchange was brief, but left a chill. As Olivia vanished into the crowd, Mason's phone buzzed with a notification. A tabloid headline screamed, "Mason Carter's shady dealings betrayal," or "business as usual." The anonymously sourced article twisted the Kane fallout into a smear campaign painting Mason as a heartless tycoon. Worse, it hinted at a mystery woman at his side, with paparazzi shots of Tiana from moments earlier. Mason's face darkened. "Olivia," he muttered. "She's fast." Tiana frowned, peering at his screen. "What does this mean for you?" "It means she's trying to bury me. And now you're caught in it." He looked at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Tiana. This is my mess, not yours." She shook her head, her dark curls catching the light. "I'm not afraid of a bit of gossip. But you're in deep, aren't you?" He nodded, the weight of his empire pressing down. "I can't drag you into this, not tonight." Tiana's heart sank, but she saw the resolve in his face. "So what now?" Mason said. "I need to handle this." His voice firm but soft. "But I want to see you again, when the dust settles." She hesitated, then nodded. "Find me when you're ready." They parted as the premier's final call pulled them back to their worlds. Mason dove into damage control, his team scrambling to counter Olivia's smear. Tiana returned to her sketches, her mind replaying their connection. But the next morning the headlines exploded. Olivia had spun a new lie. Tiana was a gold digger using Mason to climb Hollywood's ladder. The accusation stung a blade aimed at Tiana's pride and her craft. Under pressure from his board, Mason made the agonizing choice to cut contact, believing it would protect her from the storm. Tiana, hurt and betrayed, vowed to forge her own path. She didn't know then that she carried a piece of Mason with her twins conceived in a fleeting night of passion after the premiere. As the weeks turned to months, her belly and her resolve grew. Hollywood was a battlefield, but Tiana Foster was a warrior, her dark skin gleaming with sweat and determination as she built a future for her unborn children. Mason, meanwhile, buried himself in work, his pale hands signing contracts and shaking off the ghosts of what might have been. Tiana's face haunted him, her laughter, a melody he couldn't forget. But Olivia's web of lies had trapped him, and he believed Tiana was better off without him. The premiere night, with its starlit promise, faded into a memory both cherished and cursed. 7 years had carved new lines into the tapestry of Los Angeles. The city still pulsed with ambition, its skyline a jagged crown under the relentless sun. Tiana Foster had transformed from a hopeful designer into a force of nature. Her studio, Foster Threads, was a beacon in the fashion district, its walls lined with sketches that had dressed Oscar winners and indie darlings alike. But her proudest creation wasn't a gown. It was her 6-year-old twins, Leo and Max. With their boundless energy and mischievous grins, the boys were her anchor in a world that often felt like quicksand. Tiana's days began before dawn. She'd braid her hair, slip into a jumpsuit, and drive to her studio, where bolts of fabric and half-finished designs awaited. By noon, she'd be at the twins' school, cheering at soccer games or helping with art projects. The dreamer Leo loved sketching superheroes, his pencils dancing across pages with a flair that reminded Tiana of her childhood. Max, the pragmatist, preferred building model sets, and his small hands were precise as he assembled tiny worlds. Motherhood was a balancing act, but Tiana thrived on it, her heart swelling with every hug and bedtime story. Yet when the boys slept late at night, she'd stare at her sketches and feel a pang, a memory of a man whose eyes had once promised her the stars. Across town, Mason Carter's empire had only grown. Carter Studios dominated Hollywood, its logo on billboards from Sunset Boulevard to Times Square. He produced blockbusters and passion projects, his name a guarantee of success. But the higher he climbed, the emptier it felt. Boardrooms and premieres couldn't fill the void left by a night 7 years ago. Tiana's face lingered in his mind, her laugh, her fire, how she'd challenged him without flinching. He'd followed her career from afar, pride mixing with regret, as her designs lit up red carpets. He'd convinced himself she'd moved on and found someone worthy of her light. The thought both comforted and gutted him. Tiana's life wasn't without scars. Raising Leo and Max alone had meant sleepless nights and sacrifices. She'd turned down lucrative offers that required travel, choosing stability for her boys. The tabloid storm from 7 years ago had faded, but its echoes lingered in her guarded heart. She'd heard whispers of Mason's success, seen his face on magazine covers, but she'd buried the pain of his silence. He'd walked away, she told herself, and she'd survived. Her twins were proof of her strength, their laughter a shield against the past. Mason, too, carried wounds. Olivia Reed's betrayal had left him wary. His trust in others had eroded. He'd rebuilt his empire brick by brick, but the cost was steep nights alone in his penthouse, haunted by what-ifs. He'd dated briefly, but no one sparked the fire Tiana had. His team urged him to settle down to project stability for the studio's image, but Mason couldn't fake it. He poured his energy into Starfall, a new film that promised to redefine sci-fi epics. It was a gamble that needed a visionary costume designer to bring its worlds to life. Fate, or perhaps Hollywood's cruel sense of humor, brought Tiana's name to his desk. Her portfolio landed in a meeting, and her designs are bold and innovative, perfect for Starfall. Mason's heart skipped as he flipped through her sketches, each a piece of her soul. He hesitated, knowing a reunion could reopen old wounds. But the film demanded the best, and Tiana was it. He greenlit her hiring, telling himself it was just business. Tiana, meanwhile, got the call from her agent on a hectic morning. The offer was staggering, a lead designer role for Starfall, with a budget that could elevate her studio to new heights. She hesitated, sensing the name behind the project. Mason Carter, the man who'd vanished from her life. But the twins needed her to say yes. College funds, a better home, a legacy. She signed the contract, steeling herself for the inevitable. Their worlds were about to collide again, not in the glow of a premiere, but in the grit of a film set. Tiana packed her sketchbook, kissed Leo and Max goodbye, and drove to the studio, her heart tangled with hope and dread. Mason, reviewing scripts in his office, felt a similar pull. 7 years had changed them, but the spark from that starlit night still smoldered, waiting for a chance to reignite. The twins, oblivious to the storm brewing, raced through their after-school routine. Leo sketched a hero with Mason's eyes, while Max built a spaceship model that looked eerily like Starfall's concept art. Tiana smiled at their creations, unaware that destiny was weaving their lives together. With its secrets and schemes, Hollywood was about to test them all. The Los Angeles morning was sharp with promise, the day when the sun cut through the haze and made every palm tree gleam. The sprawling lot of Carter Studios buzzed with the chaos of pre-production for Starfall, a sci-fi epic that had Hollywood whispering, Crew members darted between sound stages, hauling cables and shouting orders, while the scent of fresh paint and coffee hung in the air. Tiana Foster stepped onto the set, her sketchbook tucked under one arm, her posture steady, despite the knot in her stomach. She dressed for battle-tailored blazer, crisp white shirt, and boots that clicked with purpose on the concrete. This was her chance to cement her name in the industry, but the shadow of Mason Carter loomed large. Inside. Soundstage 7. Mason stood at the heart of the storm, reviewing storyboards with his director. His presence commanded the room, his tailored suit, starkly contrasting to the crew's casual jeans and headsets. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd built an empire, but his eyes scanned the set, restlessly searching for her. He knew this moment was coming, since he'd approved Tiana's hiring, but no preparation could dull the anticipation. 7 years had passed since their night at the premiere, and the memory of her laughter still haunted him. He told himself this was professional, and that he could keep it that way. But his heart wasn't listening. Tiana entered the soundstage, her gaze sweeping over the mock-up of a futuristic cityscape. The set was a marvel. Gleaming spires, neon accents, a world begging for costumes to match its ambition. She spotted Mason instantly, his silhouette unmistakable against the glow of a monitor. Their eyes locked across the room, and for a moment, the cacophony of the set faded. His gaze held the same intensity she remembered, a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something that made her pulse race. She steeled herself, clutching her sketchbook tighter. This wasn't about the past. This was about her future. Tiana, Mason said, crossing the room in long strides. His voice was warm but cautious, testing the waters. "Welcome to Starfall." She nodded, her smile professional but guarded. "Mason, thanks for the opportunity. I've got some ideas for the costumes." He gestured to a nearby table where concept art and fabric swatches were spread out. "I'd love to hear them. Your portfolio was unforgettable." The compliment landed softly, but Tiana felt the weight of their history. She spread out her sketches, each one a bold vision of interstellar warriors and diplomats, their costumes blending sleek functionality with mythic flair. Mason leaned in, his focus sharp as he studied her work. Their shoulders brushed, and the air crackled with unspoken questions. "Why did you disappear? What have you been hiding?" But neither dared to ask. As they discussed color palettes and textures, the set hummed around them. Actors rehearsed lines, lights flickered to life, and a costume assistant asked questions about a lead actress's cape. Tiana handled it with ease, her authority quiet but undeniable. Mason watched, impressed by her command of how she balanced creativity with precision. She was no longer the rising star from 7 years ago. She was a force, and he couldn't look away. Their reunion wasn't all smooth. The first day stretched into a marathon of fittings and revisions, and Tiana felt the strain of being near Mason. Every glance, every casual word, stirred memories she'd buried. She hadn't told him about Leo and Max, her twins, at home with her sister, probably arguing over whose turn it was to pick the evening's movie. The boys were her secret, her shield against a world that could be cruel. She feared Mason's world, his wealth, his power, could disrupt the fragile balance she'd built for her family. So she kept her distance, focusing on the work. Mason sensed her walls but didn't push. He was too busy navigating his own turmoil. Starfall was his biggest gamble, yet a project that could redefine his legacy or bankrupt his studio. The board was watching, and so was Olivia Reed, who'd already sent a cryptic email hinting at industry buzz about the film. Mason knew she was circling, waiting for a misstep. Tiana's presence was a complication he hadn't planned for, but her talent was undeniable. He needed her, and not just for the costumes. By the third day, they'd settled into a rhythm. Tiana's team stitched and tailored, transforming her sketches into reality, while Mason oversaw the broader vision. Their interactions were professional, but the undercurrent was electric. During a late-night meeting in the costume department, with fabric scraps littering the floor, Mason caught Tiana humming a tune from the premiere night. He froze the melody, pulling him back to that starlit moment. "You still remember that song?" he asked, his voice soft. Tiana paused, a needle in her hand. "Some things stick with you." Their eyes met, and for a second the years melted away. But Tiana broke the gaze, turning back to her work. "We should focus. The first costume test is tomorrow." Mason nodded, swallowing the urge to say more. He left the room, their unspoken history heavy on his shoulders. Tiana watched him go, her heart a tangle of longing and fear. She didn't know how long she could keep her secrets, or if she wanted to. The costume test was a triumph. Actors strode across the set in Tiana's creations, their capes flowing like liquid starlight, their armor gleaming with futuristic menace. The crew applauded, and Mason caught Tiana's eye, giving her a nod of respect. She returned it, a small victory in a day filled with tension. But as the set cleared, a shadow lingered. Olivia Reed had been spotted on the lot, and her presence was a reminder that Hollywood never played fair. Tiana drove home that night, her mind racing. Leo and Max greeted her with hugs, chatting about school, and superheroes grounding her. She tucked them into bed, kissing their foreheads, and promised herself she'd protect them from the chaos of her world. But Mason's face lingered in her thoughts, his presence a question she wasn't ready to answer. The set was their battlefield now, and the stakes were higher than ever. The Starfall set pulsed with the rhythm of a machine in overdrive. 2 weeks into production, the soundstage was a labyrinth of wires, lights, and half-built sets, each corner alive with the urgency of deadlines. Tiana Foster moved through it like a conductor, her costume team stitching and pinning relentlessly. Her designs were coming to life, each seam a testament to her vision. But the weight of Mason Carter's presence was a constant pull, his gaze finding her across crowded rooms, stirring memories she'd fought to bury. Mason, meanwhile, was juggling more than just the film. The studio's board was breathing down his neck, demanding updates on Starfall's budget, while whispers of Olivia Reed's latest schemes reached his ears. He buried himself in work, but Tiana's presence was a distraction he couldn't shake. Their interactions were polite, professional, but laced with tension. He sensed her holding back, and it gnawed at him. Had she moved on? Had she used their connection 7 years ago to climb the industry ladder, as some old tabloids had claimed? The thought twisted in his gut, a betrayal he couldn't quite believe, but couldn't dismiss. Tiana, too, was wrestling with ghosts. She'd heard the rumors from years ago, the ones that painted Mason as a cold opportunist who'd cut her loose to save his image. The pain of his silence still stung, and now, working under his roof, she wondered if he'd ever cared at all. Her twins Leo and Max were her anchor, their laughter waiting for her at home each night. But she hadn't told Mason about them, fearing his world would upend hers. The secret was a wall between them, and every glance from him chipped away at it. The misunderstanding deepened during a tense fitting session. Tiana was adjusting a lead actor's costume when Mason walked in, his expression stormy. After a call with investors, he watched her work his mind, replaying old headlines, costume designer rides, Carter's coattails. Olivia had planted those stories, but doubt had taken root. He approached Tiana, his tone sharper than intended. He said, "Your designs are getting buzz, but some people are asking if you got this gig because of us." Tiana's hands stilled on the fabric. "What are you implying, Mason?" he said. "I'm not implying anything," but his eyes betrayed his uncertainty. "I need to know if this is about the work." Her jaw tightened, anger flaring. "You think I'm here because of some old fling I earned this, Mason? Every stitch, every sketch, my work speaks for itself." He held her gaze, regret flickering. I didn't mean it like that. But this town talks, Tiana. You know that. She turned away, focusing on the costume. You should listen to your own advice and focus on the work. The exchange left a chill, and Mason cursed himself as he left the room. Tiana's words echoed in his head, as did the doubts Olivia had sown years ago. He didn't know what to believe, and the uncertainty was a wound he couldn't close. The next blow came from Olivia herself. A trade magazine hit the stands, its cover story screaming, "Starfall's costume. Controversy, is Tiana Foster a copycat?" The article accused Tiana of plagiarizing designs from a lesser-known designer, complete with side-by-side photos that looked damningly similar. The similarities were fabricated, and it was a clever edit by Olivia's team, but the damage was immediate. Social media erupted, and Tiana's contract with Starfall was suddenly under scrutiny. The studio's legal team called an emergency meeting, and Tiana defended her work to a room of skeptical executives. "I've never seen those designs before," Tiana said, her voice steady, but her hands trembling. "My sketches are original. I have time-stamped files, mood boards, everything." The legal team nodded, but their eyes were cold. Mason sat at the head of the table, silent, his mind a storm. He wanted to believe her, but the evidence was convincing, and Olivia's influence was a specter in the room. Tiana caught his hesitation, and it cut deeper than the accusations. "You don't believe me, do you?" she asked later, cornering him in his office. Mason ran a hand through his hair. Frustration etched on his face. "I don't know what to believe, Tiana. This could tank the film. And you." She stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. "I thought you knew me better than that. Or maybe you never did." The words hit like a slap, and Mason had no response. Tiana walked out, her heart pounding. She drove home, the city's lights blurring through tears she refused to let fall. Leo and Max were waiting their hugs, a reminder of why she fought. But the accusation hung over her, a cloud threatening everything she'd built. Olivia, watching from her sleek office across town, smiled. She'd planted the story with precision, knowing it would drive a wedge between Mason and Tiana. But she underestimated Tiana's resilience. The next day, Tiana arrived at the set with a stack of evidence, her original sketches, emails, and even a sworn statement from her assistant. She presented it to the legal team, her voice unwavering. The executives, swayed by her thoroughness, agreed to investigate further, but the damage to her reputation lingered. Mason watched from a distance, torn between guilt and admiration. He wanted to reach out and apologize, but the rift between them was too broad. Tiana, meanwhile, threw herself into her work, her costumes a defiant statement of her talent. But as she tucked her boys into bed late at night, she wondered if Hollywood was worth the fight. Mason's doubt had wounded her, and the specter of Olivia's schemes loomed larger than ever. The set was a battleground now, and trust was a casualty neither could afford. The Starfall set was a pressure cooker, its sprawling sound stages alive with the hum of creativity and tension. Tiana Foster moved through the chaos with fierce determination, her costume department a fortress of fabric and thread. Her designs, sleek, otherworldly garments that married myth with technology, were earning quiet praise, despite the lingering cloud of Olivia Reed's plagiarism accusations. Tiana had cleared her name with the studio's legal team, presenting a bulletproof case of original sketches and timestamps. But the whispers in the industry persisted. She buried her frustration in her work, her hands steady as she pinned a cape to a mannequin, but her heart was heavy. Mason Carter's doubt during the scandal had left a scar, and she kept him at arm's length, focusing on her craft and the twins waiting at home. Mason, meanwhile, was drowning in the demands of Starfall. The film was behind schedule, the budget creeping upward, and Olivia's shadow loomed larger with every cryptic email she sent to his investors. He navigated meetings calmly, but Tiana's presence on set was a constant pull. Their interactions were clipped professional, but each glance reignited memories of their premiere night 7 years ago. He sensed her secrets, the way she deflected personal questions, and it fueled his lingering doubts. Had she moved on? Had she used him back then? The questions gnawed at him, but he couldn't bring himself to confront her. The turning point came unexpectedly on a sweltering afternoon when Tiana's sister called in sick, forcing her to bring Leo and Max to the set. The twins, 6 years old and brimming with curiosity, trailed her into the costume department, their backpacks bouncing. Leo clutched a sketchbook, his fingers smudged with charcoal from drawing superheroes. Max carried a model spaceship, its tiny lights flickering as he carefully adjusted it. Tiana set them up in a corner with snacks and strict instructions to stay put, but their energy was a force of nature. Mason spotted them during a break drawn by Leo's laughter as he showed Max a drawing. The boys were a whirlwind, their voices cutting through the set's hum. Mason approached curious and froze when he saw them up close. Leo's smile was eerily familiar, a mirror of his own from childhood photos. Max's habit of tilting his head while thinking echoed Mason's quirks. His heart thudded, a suspicion forming as he watched them. Tiana, engrossed in a fitting, didn't notice his approach. "Hey there, Mason," said, crouching to the boy's level. "What's all this?" Leo held up his sketchbook proud. "It's my superhero. He's got laser eyes and saves the world." Mason grinned, studying the drawing. The hero's face, scribbled in bold lines, had eyes that matched his own, a detail that sent a chill down his spine. That's some serious talent. "What's his name, Captain Star?" Leo said. "Like Starfall, but cooler." Max piped up, holding his model. "Mine's a ship. It's got shields and stuff like Dad would want." Mason's breath caught. Tiana's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. She crossed the room in seconds, her voice tight. "Leo, Max, time to pack up. We're heading home soon." Mason straightened his gaze, locking with hers. "Tiana, are they?" "Not here," she said, her tone sharp. She ushered the boys to gather their things, her hands trembling. Mason followed her to a quiet corner, his mind racing. "Tiana, talk to me," he said, his voice low but urgent. "Are they mine?" She froze, her back to him, then turned slowly. Her eyes were a storm of fear and defiance. "Yes," she said finally, the word barely a whisper. "They're yours. But you walked away, Mason. I did what I had to do." The revelation hit him like a freight train. He staggered back, memories of that premiere night flooding back, the passion, the connection, the chaos that followed. Olivia's lies had kept him from Tiana, and now he'd missed 6 years of his sons' lives. Guilt and wonder warred within him, but Tiana's expression stopped him cold. She was terrified not of him, but of what his world could do to her boys. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice raw. "You vanished," she said, her voice breaking after the headlines. "The rumors, you cut me off. I wouldn't chase you, not when I had them to protect." Mason's hands clenched, anger at himself, and Olivia burning hot. "I didn't know, Tiana. I thought you were better off without me." She shook her head, tears brimming but unshed. "I can't do this now. I need to get them home." He nodded, stepping back, but his eyes lingered on the boys as they packed their bags. Leo's drawing Max's model. They were pieces of him, pieces he'd never known. As Tiana led them out, Mason stood rooted, his absence crushing him. He had sons, and he'd failed them. That night, Tiana tucked Leo and Max into bed, her heart aching. She'd kept them a secret to shield them from Hollywood's glare. But now the truth was out. Would Mason fight for them? Would he try to take them? The thought kept her awake, her mind replaying their confrontation. She didn't know if she could trust him, not after the past, not after his doubt during the plagiarism scandal. In his penthouse, Mason stared at the city skyline, a glass of bourbon untouched in his hand. Leo and Max, his sons. The realization was a lifeline and a noose. He wanted to know them to make up for lost time. But Tiana's walls were high, and he didn't know how to breach them. Once a battleground for their ambitions, the set was now a minefield of personal truths. And somewhere Olivia Reed was watching, waiting for her next move. The Starfall production roared forward, its momentum unstoppable, despite the undercurrents of tension. Tiana Foster's costume department was a hive of activity, her team stitching and dyeing under her meticulous eye. Her designs were the talk of the set, their bold lines and intricate details bringing the film's universe to life. But the revelation of Leo and Max as Mason's sons had shifted everything. Tiana moved through her days with a guarded edge, her focus split between her work and protecting her boys. She hadn't spoken to Mason since their confrontation, and the silence was a chasm, and neither knew how to cross. Mason was a man divided. By day, he led Starfall with unwavering focus, approving shots and calming jittery investors. By night, he wrestled with the truth of his fatherhood. Leo's smile, Max's curiosity, they haunted him, a reminder of years lost to Olivia Reed's manipulations. He wanted to reach out to Tiana to build something with his sons, but her distrust was a barrier he didn't know how to dismantle. The set was their only common ground, and even that was under threat. Olivia Reed struck at the worst moment. The night before a critical scene, a grand battle sequence requiring Tiana's most elaborate costumes. The wardrobe trailer was vandalized. Gowns were slashed, armor pieces smashed, and a rack of capes doused in bleach. The surgical damage targeted only the pieces needed for the next day's shoot. Tiana arrived at dawn to find her team in chaos, their faces pale with shock. She surveyed the wreckage, her heart sinking. This wasn't random. It was Olivia escalating her war. The crew scrambled to salvage what they could, but the timeline was brutal. Tiana rallied her team, pulling all-nighters to repair and recreate. She worked with a fierce calm, her hands steady as she sewed, but inside, she was raging. Olivia's accusations had nearly cost her her career. Now this sabotage threatened the film itself. Worse, it endangered her team as a faulty harness in one of the damaged costumes nearly caused an actor to fall during a stunt rehearsal. The incident sent a ripple of fear through the set, and Tiana's name was whispered in the wrong kind of conversations. Mason was furious when he heard. He stormed into the wardrobe trailer, his eyes blazing. "Who did this?" he demanded, though he already suspected the answer. Tiana didn't look up from her sewing machine. "You know who. She's been gunning for me since day one." He paced, his hands clenched. "I'll handle Olivia. This stops now." Tiana's needle paused, her voice low. "You can't handle her, Mason. She's always one step ahead." He stopped, meeting her gaze. "I'm not letting her destroy you or this film." The words hung between them, a fragile bridge. Tiana wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. She turned back to her work, dismissing him with a nod. Mason left, his resolve hardening. Olivia had gone too far, and he'd find a way to stop her. Help came from an unexpected ally. Evelyn Grant, a veteran director with a reputation for fairness, had been consulting on Starfall. She'd seen Tiana's work and admired her resilience. When she heard about the sabotage, she pulled Tiana aside. "I've been in this game longer than you've been alive," Evelyn said, her voice gravelly but kind. "I know Olivia's tricks. Let me help." Evelyn rallied the crew, redirecting resources to Tiana's department. She also dug into the trailer's security footage, uncovering a blurry image of a figure in a hooded jacket, likely Olivia's hired hand. It wasn't enough for legal action, but it was enough to shift the set's mood. The crew, once skeptical, began to see Tiana as a fighter, not a liability. Her team worked miracles, delivering the costumes in time for the shoot. The battle scene was the triumph, the cameras capturing every glint of Tiana's designs under the lights. Mason watched the monitor's pride swelling as the costumes stole the scene. He caught Tiana's eye across the set, offering a small smile. She returned it, hesitant but real. A crack in the wall between them was a moment of shared victory. But the threat wasn't over. Olivia's silence was ominous, a calm before a storm. Tiana sat with Leo and Max that night, reading them a bedtime story. Their laughter was a balm, but her mind was on Mason. He'd stood up for her in his way, but the past still loomed. Could she let him in, knowing the chaos his world brought? In his office, Mason stared at a photo of the twins he'd snapped on set. He didn't know how to be a father, but wanted to try. The sabotage had clarified one thing: he and Tiana were on the same side, whether she admitted it or not. Olivia was the enemy, and the fight was far from over. The Starfall set thrummed with a tense rhythm, its sound stages a maze of cables, lights, and whispered urgency. Tiana Foster's costume department had survived Olivia Reed's sabotage, delivering flawless designs for the critical battle scene. But the victory was bittersweet. Tiana moved through her days with a guarded focus, her hands deft as she stitched and adjusted, but her heart was a battlefield. Mason Carter's revelation about their twins Leo and Max had cracked open a wound she'd long buried. She wanted to protect her boys from his world, but his earnest gaze and quiet support were chipping away at her defenses. Mason, meanwhile, was unraveling a more profound truth. The vandalism had been a wake-up call, forcing him to confront Olivia's influence on Starfall and his past. Her lies had driven a wedge between him and Tiana 7 years ago, costing him a chance with her and his sons. The guilt was a weight he carried through every meeting, every late-night script review. He watched Tiana from a distance, her strength both a reminder of what he'd lost and a beacon of what he still hoped to gain. But first, he needed answers. The breakthrough came in a quiet moment, after a grueling day of reshoots. Mason sat in his office, sifting through old emails from the premiere night 7 years ago. A hunch had been nagging him. Olivia's timing back then, the way the tabloid storm had erupted so perfectly, felt too orchestrated. He dug into archived messages, cross-referencing dates and contacts. Buried in a thread with his former assistant, he found a forwarded email from Olivia to a tabloid editor leaking the gold digger story about Tiana. The message was coded, but the intent was clear. She'd planted the lies to isolate Mason and ruin Tiana. Worse, another email hinted at Olivia, intercepting Mason's attempts to reach Tiana, ensuring they never reconnected. Mason's hands shook as he read, anger and shame boiling over. He'd let Olivia manipulate him, believing her lies about Tiana's ambitions. He'd cut contact to protect her, but instead, he'd abandoned her when she needed him most. The realization was a gut punch. He knew he had to make it right. He found Tiana alone in the costume trailer, surrounded by sketches and fabric swatches, and the late hour had cleared the set, leaving only the hum of overhead lights. She looked up, startled, as he entered, her expression wary. "Mason, it's late," she said, setting down a needle. "What's this about?" He closed the door, his voice low but urgent. "I found something, about 7 years ago. Olivia, she set us up." Tiana's brow furrowed, her hands stilling. "What are you talking about?" He pulled out his phone, showing her the emails. "She fed the tabloids that story about you. She made sure I saw it, made sure I doubted you." and she blocked my messages to you after the premiere. I tried to reach out, Tiana. I swear I did. She read the emails, her breath catching. The words were a knife cutting through the pain she'd carried for years. She'd thought Mason had chosen his empire over her, but Olivia had orchestrated it all. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back, her voice steady. "Why didn't you fight harder?" she asked. "You could have found me." Mason's shoulders sagged, his eyes raw. "I thought you were better off without me. Olivia made me believe you'd used me and moved on. I was a fool, Tiana, and I've paid for it every day since." The confession hung between them, heavy and fragile. Tiana's heart ached, torn between anger and the flicker of understanding. She'd built walls to protect herself and her boys, but Mason's vulnerability was a crack in her armor. She stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "I was alone, Mason. Pregnant, scared, with no one to lean on. I built a life for Leo and Max, but it wasn't easy. You don't get to walk back in and fix it." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I missed everything, their first steps, their first words. I can't undo that. But I want to be there now. For them. For you." Tiana's breath hitched, her eyes searching his. She saw the man from the premiere night, who looked at her like she was the only star in the room. But she also saw the man who'd doubted her, who'd let Olivia's lies win. Trust was a fragile thing, and hers was still bruised. "I need time," she said finally. It's too much." Mason nodded, stepping back. "I'll wait as long as it takes." They parted in silence, the trailer's dim light casting long shadows. Tiana drove home, her mind a storm. Leo and Max were asleep when she checked on them, their faces peaceful in the glow of a nightlight. She kissed their foreheads, her resolve hardening. She'd protect them no matter what. But Mason's words lingered, a promise and a plea. Alone in his penthouse, Mason stared at the city skyline. The emails burned into his memory. Olivia had stolen years from him, from Tiana, from their sons. He vowed to make her pay, not with her own tactics, but with the truth. The set was no longer just a battleground for Starfall. It was a reckoning, and he was ready to fight for his family. The next day, Tiana returned to work with renewed focus, her costumes a shield against the chaos. Mason kept his distance, but his support was tangible, extra resources for her team. A quiet word to the crew to rally behind her. The set buzzed with a new energy, a shared defiance against Olivia's schemes. Tiana felt it, a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, she and Mason could rebuild something. But the past wasn't done with them yet, and Olivia was far from finished. Hollywood's pulse beat loudest in its scandals, and Olivia Reed knew how to play the tune. The Starfall set was riding high after Tiana's costumes dazzled in the latest dailies, but Olivia's next move was a masterstroke of malice. She unleashed a media blitz feeding tabloids, a story that painted Tiana as a manipulative opportunist who'd seduced Mason to secure her role on Starfall. The headlines screamed, "Costume Queen's Power Play. Tiana Foster's Rise or Ruin." Paparazzi swarmed Tiana's studio, their cameras flashing outside her home, catching glimpses of Leo and Max as they played in the yard. The intrusion was a violation, and Tiana's heart pounded with protective fury. She shielded her boys, keeping them home from school and enlisting her sister to watch them. At the set, she moved with a steely calm, her costumes defiantly expressing her talent. But the media storm was relentless, painting her as a villain in a narrative she couldn't control. Mason, meanwhile, was livid. He'd seen Olivia's hand in the headlines, her fingerprints on every salacious detail. He called an emergency meeting with his PR team, demanding a counteroffensive. But the tabloids were a hydra cut, one story down, and two more grew. Tiana faced the chaos head-on, refusing to let Olivia win. She met with a journalist, Clara Nguyen, who was known for her integrity. Clara had covered Tiana's rise in the design world and believed in her talent. Over coffee in a quiet diner, Tiana laid out her story, the sabotage, the plagiarism lies, the truth about her and Mason. Clara listened, her notebook filling with details, and promised to dig deeper. "I'll get the truth out," she said, "but Olivia's got deep pockets. This won't be easy." Clara's article hit the web, a detailed exposé that laid bare Olivia's manipulations, complete with leaked emails and crew testimonies about the wardrobe sabotage. For a moment, it seemed the tide was turning. Social media buzzed with support for Tiana, and hashtags like @JusticeForTiana were trending. But Olivia was quick to strike back. She bought off Clara's editor, burying a follow-up piece and spreading rumors that Clara's reporting was biased. The journalist was sidelined, her credibility attacked, and Tiana felt betrayed. Hollywood's rules were cruel, and Olivia played them better than anyone. Mason, watching the chaos unfold, refused to stay silent. He met Tiana on the set's rooftop, away from prying eyes, the city sprawling below them. "This has to stop," he said, his voice tight with anger. "Olivia's tearing you apart, and it's my fault. I let her manipulate me once, not again." Tiana leaned against the railing, her eyes on the horizon. "It's not just your fault, Mason. I chose to come here to work on Starfall. I knew the risks." He stepped closer, his voice soft but fierce. "You don't deserve this. Neither do Leo and Max. Let me fight with you. Please." She turned, meeting his gaze. The sincerity in his eyes was a lifeline, but trust was still a fragile thread. "How?" she asked. "She's got the media in her pocket." "We go public," Mason said. "Not with lies, but with the truth. About us, about the boys, about what she did. We take away her power." Tiana hesitated. The thought of exposing her sons to the spotlight was terrifying. But the alternative, letting Olivia control the narrative, was worse. She nodded, her voice steady. "Okay, but we do it together." They crafted a plan, working late into the night. Mason's PR team drafted a statement for the press and the Starfall crew, rallying them as allies. Tiana reached out to her network designers, actors, friends who'd seen her struggle and triumph. They recorded a joint video posted to Carter Studios' official channels, where Mason admitted his past mistakes and vouched for Tiana's integrity. Tiana spoke of her journey, love for her boys, and refusal to let lies define her. The video was raw, honest, and it hit like a thunderbolt. The response was electric. Fans and industry insiders shared the video, drowning out Olivia's headlines. Crew members posted behind-the-scenes photos of Tiana's costumes, praising her talent. Even Clara Nguyen, sidelined but undeterred, wrote a freelance piece that went viral, exposing Olivia's tactics. The media war wasn't over, but Tiana and Mason had drawn a line. They stood together, their shared history and sons binding them in a way Olivia couldn't touch. At home, Tiana tucked Leo and Max into bed, and their questions about the camera people broke her heart. She promised them safety, love, and a future where they could dream big. Mason watched the video's view count climb in his office, a spark of hope igniting. Olivia was wounded, but she was far from defeated. The premiere loomed with it, a chance for her to strike again. Tiana and Mason were ready, their alliance forged in truth. But the battle for their family and dreams was beginning. The Starfall set was a whirlwind of final preparations, its sound stages alive with the clatter of props and the murmur of last-minute rehearsals. Tiana Foster moved through the chaos with a steady hand, her costume department a beacon of precision amid the frenzy. Her designs, flowing capes, gleaming armor, and intricate tunics, had become the film's visual soul, earning praise from the crew and early buzz from critics. But the victory was overshadowed by the storm in her heart. The truth about Leo and Max, her twins with Mason Carter, had forged a fragile alliance, but trust remained a tightrope. Olivia Reed's media war had quieted, but Tiana knew the reprieve was temporary. Mason navigated the set with his usual command, approving shots and soothing anxious investors, but his focus kept drifting to Tiana. Their joint video, a raw declaration of truth, had shifted the narrative, rallying support for her and exposing Olivia's lies. Yet the personal cost weighed heavily. He'd missed years with his sons, and Tiana's guarded heart reminded him of his failures. Every glance they shared on set was charged with unspoken questions. Could they rebuild what was lost? Could they be a family? Mason wanted to believe it, but Tiana's hesitation was a wall he couldn't breach. Tiana's own doubts ran deep. After tucking Leo and Max into bed late at night, she sat at her kitchen table, sketches spread out, her mind racing. Her career was soaring, her designs gracing Starfall's heroes. But the cost of aligning with Mason's world was steep. Hollywood was a machine that polished individuality into submission, and Tiana feared losing her creative spark, freedom, and very self. She'd built a life for her boys on her own terms, but Mason's presence, his wealth, power, and undeniable pull threatened to upend it. Could she love him again without sacrificing who she'd become? The tension crystallized during a late-night meeting on the set's deserted backlot. The air was cool, the city's glow a distant halo. Tiana was finalizing a costume for the film's climactic scene, a regal gown that shimmered like a nebula. Mason found her there, surrounded by fabric scraps, her focus intense. He lingered in the doorway, watching her work, the quiet beauty of her craft, stirring something deep within him. "You're incredible," he said, stepping closer. "The way you bring this world to life. It's magic." Tiana looked up, her hands stilling. "It's work, Mason. It's what I do." He nodded, settling on a stool beside her. "I know, but it's more than that. It's you. I've never met anyone like you." The words hung between them, heavy with history. Tiana set down her needle, her voice soft but edged. "You say that, but what happens if we try this? If I let you in? Your world, it's a spotlight, Mason. It burns away everything that doesn't fit." He leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "I don't want to change you, Tiana. I want to be part of what you've built. For you, for Leo, for Max." Her breath caught at their names. She'd kept the boys away from the set since their accidental meeting, shielding them from the chaos. But Mason's sincerity was a crack in her armor. She stood pacing to the edge of the set where a mock-up of a starship gleamed under moonlight. She said, "I've fought for my independence, and she's back to him. Every sketch, every stitch. It's mine. I can't let that go, not even for you." Mason followed, stopping just behind her. "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking for a chance to stand beside you. I missed their first steps, their first words. I don't want to miss any more." Tiana turned, her eyes glistening but fierce. "And what about you? You're carrying the weight of an empire. You missed their childhood because you chose this life. How do I know you won't pick it again?" The question cut deep, and Mason's silence was answer enough. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her voice breaking. "I love you, Mason. I never stopped. But love isn't enough if it costs me everything." The confession hung in the air, a truth neither could ignore. Mason's heart pounded, torn between joy and fear. He wanted to promise her the world, but her words echoed his doubts. He'd built Carter Studios at the expense of everything else. Could he balance it with a family? He stepped back, giving her space. his voice low. "I don't have all the answers," he said, "but I'm not walking away this time. I'll prove it, Tiana, to you and to them." She nodded, her expression unreadable, and returned to her work. Mason left the backlot, and the city's hum was a reminder of the stakes. The premiere was weeks away, and Olivia's silence was a ticking bomb. Tiana drove home, her mind a storm. Leo and Max greeted her with sleepy hugs, their warmth grounding her. She sat by their bedside watching them dream, and wondered if she could risk her heart again. The set was a crucible forging their future, but the fire could consume them both. The Dolby Theater glowed under a starlit sky, its red carpet a river of glamour and ambition. The Starfall premiere was Hollywood's event of the season, drawing A-listers, critics, and paparazzi in a frenzy of flashbulbs and anticipation. Tiana Foster stood backstage, her heart pounding as she adjusted an actress's gown and designed the night's talk. Her shimmering capes, sculpted armor, and ethereal tunics had transformed Starfall into a visual masterpiece, and early reviews called her work iconic. But the weight of the evening was more than professional. Mason Carter, her son's father, and the man still holding her heart, navigated the crowd, and Olivia Reed was plotting her final strike. Mason moved through the carpet with practiced ease, his tailored suit sharp against the chaos. He shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and deflected questions about the film's rocky production. But his mind was on Tiana and their twins Leo and Max, who were safely home with her sister. Their late-night confession on the backlot had left him raw, her admission of love, a spark he couldn't let die. He'd vowed to prove himself, to show her he could be the man she and their boys needed. But Olivia's shadow loomed, her silence in the weeks since their video, a warning of something bigger. As the theater filled, Olivia made her move. She'd slipped a dossier to a major tabloid, claiming Tiana had stolen designs from a defunct fashion house. The evidence was fabricated, doctored sketches, and forged emails, but it was convincing time to hit just as Starfall's hype peaked. The story broke online minutes before the screening, trending with hashtags like #TianaThief. Whispers spread through the crowd, and Tiana felt the shift backstage, her team's anxious glances confirming the worst. She checked her phone, her stomach dropping at the headlines. Olivia had struck at her core, threatening her career and her boy's future. Tiana's hands trembled, but she straightened, refusing to break. She'd fought too hard, built too much to let Olivia win. She found Mason in the wings, his face dark in fury as he scrolled through the same news. "She's gone too far," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "This ends tonight." Tiana nodded, her resolve hardening. "How do we fight this? It's everywhere." Mason's eyes met hers, a plan forming. "We don't hide. We face it head on, right here, right now." As the lights dimmed and the crowd settled, Mason took the stage, his presence commanding silence. He welcomed the audience, praising the Starfall team, but his tone shifted as he addressed the rumors. "We celebrate a film built on passion and truth tonight," he said, his voice steady. "But there's a lie circulating, one aimed at someone who's poured her soul into this project. Tiana Foster is the heart of Starfall's vision. Her work is original, undeniable, and unmatched." The crowd murmured, some skeptical, others intrigued. Mason held up his phone, displaying a live feed from Carter Studios' social media, where Tiana's team had just posted a time-lapse of her design process. Sketches, fabric tests, fittings, all time-stamped, irrefutable. "This is the truth," he said, "and anyone who says otherwise is trying to tear down what we've built together." Tiana stepped onto the stage, unscripted, her gown catching the light. The crowd hushed as she took the mic, her voice clear, despite the knot in her chest. She said, "I've fought for every inch of my career, not for fame, but for my craft, my family. These designs are mine from sleepless nights and a love for storytelling. I won't let lies take that away. The applause was tentative at first, then thunderous. Critics in the audience tweeted support, and the time-lapse video went viral, drowning out Olivia's smear. Backstage, Olivia's smile faltered her plan, unraveling under the spotlight. Mason and Tiana stood together, their hands brushing a silent vow in the chaos. The film began, its visuals bolstered by Tiana's costumes captivating the audience. Reviews poured in, calling Starfall a triumph, Tiana's work its crown jewel. After the screening, Mason and Tiana faced the press together on the red carpet. Cameras flashed, questions flew, but they stood united, their answers sharp and honest. The moment was electric, their chemistry undeniable, but Tiana's heart still wavered. She loved him, but the future was a gamble. Mason pulled her aside as they stepped away from the cameras, his voice low. "I meant every word up there," he said. "I'm all in, Tiana. For you, for Leo, for Max. But I know you need time." She looked at him, the man who'd fought for her tonight, and bared his soul to the world. "I do," she said softly. "But I'm not saying no." They parted with a lingering glance, the night's triumph tempered by uncertainty. Olivia slunk away. Her influence was weakened, but her ambition was intact. Tiana drove home, her boys' laughter waiting, a reminder of what mattered most. Mason stood alone on the carpet, the city's lights a promise and a challenge. The premiere had been their victory, but the road ahead was uncharted, and Hollywood never stopped testing its stars. The Starfall premiere had left Hollywood buzzing, its visuals driven by Tiana Foster's breathtaking costumes, heralded as a new standard for cinematic artistry. Thanks to Mason Carter's bold stand and Tiana's unyielding resolve, the tabloid storm orchestrated by Olivia Reed had been quelled. But the victory was a fragile bridge between them, their shared history, and the existence of their twins Leo and Max, binding them in ways neither could fully navigate. The Dolby Theater's lights had faded, but the real work of healing, of proving trust, lay ahead. Tiana returned to her studio, Foster Threads, with a renewed fire. Her designs were now a beacon, drawing offers from indie filmmakers and major studios alike. But her heart was with her boys, who greeted her each evening with hugs and stories of their day. Leo's superhero sketches and Max's model spaceships were her anchor, grounding her in an increasingly unsteady world. Mason's presence, both on the Starfall set and in her thoughts, was a constant pull. His vow to be there for her and their sons was sincere, but Tiana feared the cost of letting him in. Could she share her life without losing the independence she'd fought to build? Mason, meanwhile, was reshaping his own world. Starfall's success had solidified Carter Studios' dominance, but the revelation of his fatherhood had shifted his priorities. He spent nights poring over photos of Leo and Max, stolen moments from their brief set visit, their smiles a mirror of his own. Guilt over missing their early years gnawed at him, but so did a fierce determination to make it right. He knew Tiana's trust was fragile, her independence, a fortress he couldn't storm. He'd need to prove he could stand beside her, not over her, to win her. The opportunity came unexpectedly. Tiana had long dreamed of a project, a film, where she could not only design costumes, but shape the story, a passion piece blending folklore and futurism. She'd sketched concepts for years, a binder of ideas tucked away in her studio, too ambitious for her small operation to fund. Mason learned of it through her assistant, who'd mentioned it during a Starfall rap meeting in passing. The idea sparked something in him, a chance to show Tiana he believed in her vision, not as a mogul controlling her, but as a partner, amplifying her dreams. He approached her at her studio, a converted warehouse filled with bolts of fabric and humming sewing machines. Tiana was pinning a dress form, her focus intense, when Mason knocked. She looked up, surprised, her guard rising. "Mason," she said, setting down her pins. What brings you here? He held up a folder, his expression earnest. I heard about your project, the folklore sci-fi film. I want to produce it. Tiana's eyes narrowed, skepticism flickering. How do you even know about that? Your assistant mentioned it, he admitted. I'm not trying to pry, Tiana. I want to help you make it real. Complete creative control, your story, your designs, your call. She crossed her arms, studying him. Why? What's in it for you? You, he said. And Leo and Max. I want to show you, I'm not here to take over. I want to build something with you for them. The words hit hard, stirring a mix of hope and fear. Tiana had guarded her dream project fiercely, a piece of her soul she'd never shared. Letting Mason in meant risking control, but his offer was different. No strings, no power plays. She took the folder and flipped through his proposal, a budget, a timeline, and a commitment to her as director of the costume and art departments. It was generous, almost too good to be true. I'll think about it, she said, her voice steady but soft. This is a lot. Mason nodded, stepping back. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Over the following weeks, Tiana wrestled with the decision. She met with Mason outside the studio in neutral spaces, coffee shops, quiet parks, where they could talk without the weight of Hollywood's glare. He shared stories of his struggles, the loneliness behind his empire, and how Leo and Max's existence had reframed his life. Tiana opened up cautiously about raising the boys alone, the nights she'd sewn until dawn to pay the bills, the pride she felt watching them grow. The conversations were raw, peeling back layers of hurt and hope. One evening, Mason asked to meet the boys properly. Tiana hesitated, her protective instincts flaring, but she saw the longing in his eyes. She invited him to her small apartment, where Leo and Max built a pillow fort. The twins were initially shy, eyeing Mason curiously, but his easy smile and willingness to join their game broke the ice. Leo showed him a sketch of Captain Star, and Max explained the mechanics of his model ship. Mason listened, genuinely captivated, and Tiana watched from the kitchen, her heart softening. He wasn't trying to be a mogul here, just a man meeting his sons. The project became her turning point. Tiana agreed to let Mason produce her film titled Mythwoven, on the condition that she retained complete creative control. He honored it, securing funding without meddling, connecting her with a director who shared her vision. Pre-production began, and Tiana threw herself into it, her sketches blending ancient motifs with sleek futurism. Mason was there not as a boss, but as a collaborator, offering resources and quiet encouragement. The process was healing, a proof of his commitment, and Tiana felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. One night, as they reviewed storyboards in her studio, Tiana paused, meeting his gaze. "You're doing this for real," she said. "For me. For them." Mason smiled, his eyes warm. "I told you I'd prove it. I love you, Tiana, and I want to be a father to our boys if you'll let me." She took his hand, her voice steady. "Okay, let's try. For them. For us." The moment was a quiet vow, a step toward a future neither could fully predict. Mythwoven took shape, a testament to Tiana's talent and Mason's support. Leo and Max began to know their father, their laughter filling the gaps of lost years. But Hollywood was never still, and whispers of Olivia Reed's next move lingered. Tiana and Mason were stronger now, united, but the city's shadows held secrets yet to unfold. The Malibu coastline stretched before the small modern house, its waves a rhythmic pulse against the shore. Tiana Foster stood on the deck, the sea breeze tugging at her hair, her heart full as she watched Leo and Max race along the beach, their laughter carried by the wind. The move to Malibu had been a leap, a new chapter for her and her twins, now joined by Mason Carter. Their family was unconventional, forged in the fires of Hollywood's trials, but it was theirs. Tiana's studio, Foster Threads, had expanded, and its new location was a sleek space where her designs for Myth Woven were taking shape. Mason's support had made it possible, but her vision shone as a beacon in the industry. Mason stood beside her, his presence steady, his eyes on their sons as they chased seagulls. Carter Studios was thriving, and Starfall's success was a launchpad for new projects, but his focus had shifted. Leo and Max were his world now, their curiosity and energy a daily gift. He'd taken to fatherhood with a quiet intensity, learning their quirks. Leo's love for sketching, Max's obsession with building and carving out time to be there, whether for soccer games or bedtime stories. Tiana watched him grow into the role, her trust deepening with each small moment. Their life wasn't without challenges. Hollywood's glare followed them, paparazzi occasionally lurking near the beach house, though Mason's security team kept them at bay. Tiana's work on Myth Woven was demanding, her days split between designing and directing the film's visual identity. Mason balanced his studio's demands with family, and his penthouse was traded for the Malibu home where they could build memories. The twins thrived, enrolled in a school that nurtured their creativity, with Mason guiding them through Hollywood's edge of set visits, studio tours, while Tiana ensured they stayed grounded. Leo and Max were their bridge, their questions about the world sparking conversations that wove Tiana and Mason closer. One evening, as they built a sandcastle, Leo asked Dad, "Are you a superhero like Captain Star?" Mason laughed, ruffling his hair, and glanced at Tiana, who smiled from her spot on the sand. "Not quite," he said, "but I'm trying to be your hero." Max, ever practical, added, "You need a ship first. I'll build you one." The moment was small but profound, a family finding its rhythm. Tiana's studio became a hub, her designs for Myth Woven drawing praise from early test audiences. She'd opened it to young designers, mentoring them as she'd once dreamed of being mentored, her name now synonymous with innovation. Mason was her partner in every sense, funding the project without controlling it, and his pride in her was evident in every meeting. Once fractured by betrayal and doubt, their love had grown stronger, rooted in mutual respect. They weren't perfect arguments flared over schedules or parenting choices, but they faced them together, their bond a quiet strength. A new shadow tested the peace. Victor Kane, Mason's former partner and a studio mogul with a grudge, resurfaced. He'd watched Starfall's success with envy, his own projects faltering. Now he set his sights on Tiana, sending a cryptic email praising her work and hinting at a collaboration. "I see something special in you," he wrote, the words laced with ambition. Tiana showed it to Mason, her instincts sharp. "He's trouble," she said, her voice firm. "He's not interested in my designs. He's after you." Mason nodded, his jaw tight. "Kane's always played dirty. He wants to destabilize us, use you to get to me." They sat on the deck, the twins asleep inside the ocean's murmur. A backdrop. Tiana leaned against Mason, her hand in his. "We've faced worse," she said. "Olivia, the tabloids, the sabotage. We'll handle this too." He squeezed her hand, his eyes on the horizon. "Together. Always." The threat loomed, a reminder that Hollywood's shine came with shadows. Kane's interest in Tiana was a chess move they'd need to counter. But for now, they stood united, their family a fortress against the industry's games. Leo and Max slept soundly, dreaming of superheroes and spaceships, while Tiana and Mason planned their next steps. Myth Woven was set to premiere in months, a testament to their shared vision. The stars above Malibu glittered, a promise of challenges and triumphs yet to come, as their family faced the future under Hollywood's watchful gaze.